The two groups of members present, I declare motion as amended passed.
Members, motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Chen Kim-po will move a motion on resolving the problems of traffic safety of and insurance premium increases for taxis. 3 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendment. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Chen Kim-po to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Siu-hung, and Mr. Ben Chen to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I now call upon Mr. Chen Kim-po to speak and move the motion. Thank you, President. I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. In recent years, taxi accidents have frequently occurred, posing a danger to passengers, pedestrians, and other vehicles. I believe most taxi drivers are responsible drivers, but there's a minority with poor driving attitude or are too reckless in trying to get customers, and that leads to accidents. Taxi accidents drive up premiums, and this also leads to fare rises, and that's bad for society. I propose this motion because I'm looking for a way that's acceptable to the taxi trade and the insurance trade to find something that works for everyone through the use of technology. Taxis are a key mode of transport. Accidents are unavoidable. According to the TD, we have roughly 18,000 taxis. Starting from 2022, every year, there were roughly 4,300 taxis involved in accidents each year. That's 24%. So 24 taxis get caught up in accidents every day. 18%, that's the accident rate for minibus, and for trucks and private cars, the accident rates are even lower. Now, given the high accident rate, insurers are sustaining a loss. Starting from 2017 to March this year, insurers are taking a loss for taxi coverage. The total loss is more than $270 million. And because of the premiums go up, the taxi fares also have to go up. The frequent accidents have to do with the driving attitude. We have seen a spate of senior cabbies getting involved in accidents. There are more than 30,000 taxi drivers with a license. They're over the age of 70. Many are active. The figures show there's an increase in accidents involving older drivers. Last year, we had 27% of such drivers, and last year, 44% of the taxi drivers were over the age of 60. So we have to face up to this issue of having more senior drivers. The government will propose tightening the rules for health checks. The proposal is to lower the age threshold from 70 to 65 years old. The drivers have to pass eyesight, hearing test. Now, if they have tumors or dementia, the drivers cannot get behind the wheels again. The trade stakeholders will be consulted, and the proposal will come to electrical next year. The proposal is based on considerations of road safety. I agree with the broad directions. On the details, there needs to be a consultation with the trade, such as on the frequency and the timing of the health checks. If there are ample justifications from the trade, I keep an open mind about this proposal. Now, drivers are better off if they are informed about their health conditions early on. The government should also consider providing subsidies for the health checks. There also should be incentives of phasing out old taxis in poor conditions. For taxis over the age of 20, there should be more stringent examination standards. On the road, the taxis are new models offering a comfortable experience, but there are more than 1,000 taxis over the age of 20, and there are hidden safety hazards on the road. So I hope the government can help the trade phase out their older taxis, being those over the age of 20. The government is looking at a 100% loan guarantee scheme for taxis to replace their old taxis with e-taxis, but there should be more incentives and support facilities, such as more chargers. Now, on phasing out cars, diesel taxis were phased out, and the that is diesel-run private cars were phased out. The drivers get incentives to replace their cars. Now, on phasing out the fleet, there's an environmental factor, but then there's also this road safety factor. Older cars come with safety risks. The new models offer a more comfortable experience and they're safer. So it's a necessity. There's a necessity to phase out the old cars. We're moving towards a smart city. The transport trade should move with the time, so I propose the use of innovation and technology to help address taxi accidents. One proposal is to get all taxis to install driver assistance devices. They can help identify potential risks, and they can include drowsiness alerts, and they can also identify speeding, and also drivers taking a call while driving. There can be voice reminders. There can also be a recording function. This can fix the bad driving habits. Now, at more than 600 taxis, the devices have been installed, data have been collected. Taxis with the devices see a much lower accident rate than the overall level. So the devices work. The government should explore this further. If this is feasible, the government should help the trade bring in the devices. The proposal also covers installing cloud-connected dashboard cameras to record the traffic conditions. When an accident happens, we will know who should be held accountable. This can also prevent insurance fraud. In recent years, there are people engaging in insurance fraud. Accidents happen, and then people find that the dashboard camera simply didn't work. Now, if you have a dashboard camera connected to the cloud system, then you can ensure the footage is there. There are also loopholes with the insurance payout system. People can file a claim within 3 years after any time after an accident. This is prone to misuse because 3 years from now, there's no way to tell how bad the injury was. A cloud-connected system will place the insurers in a better position to assess the injuries and resolve the claim. That way, we can cut down the fees involved in legal process and clamp down on insurance fraud, and that will lead to a drop in the insurance payouts. Now, the insurance frauds and payouts have been plaguing the taxi trade and the insurance trade for many years. Technology is the solution. We have the hardware, the software. The stakeholders need to work together, and then we can reach the goal. So I suggest that the Transport Department and the Insurance Authority should take the lead, bring the stakeholders together, work out a solution that works and is acceptable to all sides in terms of preventing accidents. Now, if the taxi trade can accept the proposal about the driver assistance devices and cloud-connected dashboard cameras, then the insurers should consider offering discounts in excesses. Insurance is about risk. If we can have fewer accidents and lower risk of accidents and scams, then the insurance premiums will go down. I believe with technology, it's time that we resolve this long-standing problem for the taxi trade and the insurers, that is, the high premiums and the accidents. I hope the motion can be supported by members.
I now propose a question to you that Mr. Chen Kin-po's motion be passed. Mr. Frankie YICK. President, the problem of a high insurance premium of the taxi trade has been a problem for more than a year. The taxi trade can only accept whatever premium is offered by the insurer. Otherwise, they will have to leave the trade. Last year, I asked for a subcommittee to be set up to look into this matter. We have forwarded 41 amendments to the authorities and also to the Legal Aid Department and the police for follow-up. But progress has been slow, so we are still plagued by the high premium problem. There are more claims and the premium has become higher and higher. This is a so-called problem that the government had to solve so that we can do away with bogus claims and also. And the Transport Department has a very good examination system in place. Although some taxis are older, but the parts are being replaced all the time. Even if we have vehicles of 20 years or more which can pass the examination of the Transport Department, we should not ban them from the road. And the insurers should not charge a higher premium solely because of the age. I hope FSTB can follow up this particular problem with the insurer. Most accidents are men make mistakes, but technology can certainly help us cope with such problems. This committee did propose that we should ask a taxi be assisted with technology and equipment. It's been shown that with such equipment installed, the accident rate has been reduced. The government should provide subsidies to encourage the existing taxi fleet to install such equipment. And also, if they will be encouraged to buy new taxis with such equipment installed. I believe next year we'll see such vehicles available in Hong Kong. And then we can reduce the number of accidents and lower the premium. So since the premium is related to accident, and if the taxi owner take the initiative to install the dashboard cameras and other equipment, and also if the taxi driver has no criminal record or has good management records, the insurer should provide incentive by lowering the premium. But at present, there's no such premium incentives. So at present, they are just trying to get a higher premium from all, so as to subsidize those taxi owners who are not performing. It has been proposed that the medical examination age should be lowered to 65, but then many taxi drivers decided not to be a taxi driver anymore. We are medically the advanced community. Many taxi drivers in the 60s are still very healthy. So the taxi trade would like to adjust this age to 68, so unless they have a poor health. Otherwise, they should be examined once every 2 years. The Liberal Party is in favor of providing a subsidy for taxi driver taking the medical examinations. Many taxi drivers are getting the examinations in the district health centers. So if we provide a subsidy, we can encourage more of them to get examined. If they are registered with the electronic health record sharing system, the doctor issuing the certificate can have access to more information. We should encourage them to join the service provided by district health centers. That will ensure that taxi drivers are healthy drivers. Taxi is an important part of our public transport. The government should help the trade in coping with the high premium problem. Otherwise, everyone would be affected. With these remarks, I urge members to support my amendment. Mr. Siu-hung, President, I thank Mr. Chan Kim-paul for moving this motion so that we can all speak on how we can enhance safety, traffic safety, and insurance premium problem for taxis. Well, actually, the share of taxi accident as a percentage to the total has risen very recently. Compared with bus and PLB, which the number is 4,000, and for bus is 1,585, and for PLB 673. Taxi is more prone to a taxi. We should introduce more smart transport measures. In many countries overseas, they have legislation mandating that taxis should be equipped with safety advice and tracking devices. There should be a subsidy for taxis to install safety technology and to ensure the safety of road users. But we don't have such measures. We don't have any incentive for the adoption of new technology by taxi. Therefore, through my amendment, I would like to urge the government to promote the wider adoption of I&T in the taxi trade, and also there should be an incentive to us to promote adoption. For example, the require monitoring situations and monitoring device so as to reduce the social costs. And if fewer claims are made to the insurance company, the premium could be lowered. Now we have AI and many technology changes. Many trades are facing up with the new changes. But for taxi, it's an old trade. Most taxi drivers are in the age bracket of 50 to 59 or 60 to 69. So there are many mental obstacles by installing the new technology on board, such as privacy. So we cannot expect that the trade would adopt new technology voluntarily. For example, for the smart driving technology, the system can monitor the road situation and the driver's health conditions. If they are feeling drowsy, there will be a reminder and warning signals. And we should also do modeling and fleet management measures to promote safety. We have 18,000 taxis, only 500 or 3% of them are equipped with such new technology. I hope the government can take the crucial first step, provides an incentive to ask taxis to install the safety-related new technology. The government should put action first. Otherwise, procrastination would cause delay and unnecessary results. And the government should provide 100% guaranteed loan to taxis for the adoption of new technology. And of course, we can also expand the charging facility network to encourage taxi drivers to switch to electric taxis. Well, at present, the adoption of e-vehicles is slow precisely because of the inadequate charging network. If we do not improve this, it will not be conducive to the adoption of electric taxis. And the government should do more to show its determination. I'm also concerned about the annual medical examination for taxi drivers. It's important that we ensure that taxis are driver. I support the lowering of the age to 65 and the frequency to once a year. I hope the government can subsidize the taxi drivers in doing the examination and reduce their burden. In the long term, we should create a better business environment, introduce training mechanism and arrangement for taxi drivers. Technology is changing the way public transport is offered. We should encourage taxis to adopt new and smart technology to enhance safety. I support the original motion and urge members to support my amendment. Mr. Chen Ben. Thank you, President. Taxi premium is ever on the increase. The insurance is saying that they are losing, they're making a loss, but the taxi trade is saying that they can't afford the premium. Of course, the costs, the burden of high premium will be passed on to passengers, and fares will have to go up. But ultimately, fewer passengers will take taxi, and therefore everyone suffers. So we'll look at the root cause of the high premium problem. If we have fewer claims, of course, there will be less pressure on premium hike. But if there are more and more claims, of course, the premium will have to go up. Otherwise, if there are fewer claims, of course, we can ask the insurance company to reduce premium. We're going to have a few thousand claims. At its peak, 4,800 claims, resulting in higher and higher premium. The reasons are manifold, such as old taxis, road conditions, old drivers. As for the aging fleet, Some taxis are already 18 or 15 or 18 years old, and the seats are already dented. And sometimes you hear strange noise when it's running on the road. And with the aging vehicle, they are more prone to accidents. So there's a suggestion in the motion to provide an incentive for replacing the taxi fleet. I just want to make sure that this is adequate. Well, in the last round of getting on board the LNG taxi, there was an incentive. I hope we can expand the e-vehicle charging facilities network. And it's important that we have meters and monitoring device installed on taxis. The motion is moved by the member representing the insurance sector. The intention is good. Of course, the insurance sector is willing to reduce premium if we can enhance safety. On the question of the aging taxi drivers, well, it's a real problem, but there's no evidence to say that the higher the age, the less safe they are. For Mr. Frankie YICK's amendment, he proposed the age limit should be 68. Well, it's not very meaningful to reduce the age limit from 70 to 68. I propose that for those who are over 65 or 65 to 69, everyone should get a medical examination. If there's no problem, then they would be examined 2 years later. But if there are problems, then the taxi driver should be re-examined the following year. So we would introduce this follow-up examination for those who have a problem. If 2 years later they become more healthy because of the dietary change, and if they have no problem, then they will not be examined for another 2 years. I hope my amendment can be supported. The quality of taxi should be a paramount factor. In my fourth amendment, I hope that there should be a service performance rating scheme for taxi driver by passengers, so the passengers can rate the service provided by taxi drivers. And the government should give a star to the driver with good rating on their nameplate. And the trade should provide rewards, whether it's cash or coupons or traveling the incentives for taxi driver with good performance. So we should go for both rewards and penalty. I hope my amendment can be supported by members. Thank you.
Secretary for Transport and Logistics. Mr. President, first of all, I thank Mr. Chan Kin-por for moving this motion on resolving the problems of traffic safety and insurance premiums increases for taxis, as well as Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Chan Siu-hung, and Mr. Ban Chan for their amendments. The government has always been concerned about the safety and insurance premiums of taxis. Under the Motor Vehicles Insurance Third-Party Ordinance, Cap 272, a vehicle owner must take out a motor insurance policy with an authorized insurer covering the liability for bodily injury or death of any third party arising out of the use of vehicle. In terms of taxi insurance, insurers underwrite and determine premium level based on commercial principles, taking into account key factors such as accident rates, accident severity, and past claim records. Taking into account the risks involved in providing insurance coverage for the taxi trade. In the past few years, the surge in taxi insurance premiums has led to a significant increase in taxi owners' operating costs, coupled with the impact on the economy and passenger patronage brought about by the pandemic. We understand that the taxi trade is facing a very adverse operating environment. The same goes for the taxi insurance trade. According to the information provided by the insurance authority, taxi insurance business has recorded underwriting losses in consecutive years. This reveals a misalignment of risks and premium level, which is not beneficial to the sustainable development of the market in the long run. To suitably address the issue of taxi insurance premium level, we consider it necessary to tackle the problems at source by improving the safety of taxis. The relevant bureaus and departments and the insurance authority maintain close liaison with the trade and the taxi insurance trade to explore practical and feasible measures to improve taxi driving safety and minimize accidents so as to drive down taxi premiums. The Joint Subcommittee on Issues Relating to Insurance Coverage for the Transport Sector was set up in January 2021 under the sixth term of LECHCO to explore in-depth issues relating to taxi insurance coverage. The subcommittee concluded its work in September the same year with a series of recommendations to improve taxi driving safety and strengthen efforts in combating insurance frauds and champerty. Since then, the government has been actively following up on various recommendations put forth by the subcommittee. We have maintained close liaison with stakeholders and joined hands with the insurance authority in coordinating the trades to implement various improvement measures. For example, we encourage the trade to adopt risk management measures and harness technology to enhance driving safety and hire drivers with satisfactory driving records in order to reduce traffic accidents and the amount of claims at source. We also encourage taxi owners or companies to provide insurers with information such as traffic offense records of the taxi drivers, which could facilitate the insurers to make underwriting decisions and set premium for individual policies more accurately. Meanwhile, the Transport Department continues to remind taxi drivers through various channels to comply with traffic laws and ensure road safety. The Transport Department will continue to enhance the taxi driver safety awareness through enforcement, publicity, and education. In addition, starting from the 1st of October 2020, apart from passing the relevant driving exams, all applicants for a full taxi driving license must study and complete the pre-service course and obtain the course certificate before they can be issued with a full taxi driving license. The course covers knowledge of driving safety and road safety, which can help enhance the driver's awareness. It is hoped that through joint efforts from different parties, we can enhance taxi driving safety and better protect drivers, passengers, and other road users, thereby lowering taxi premiums for the long-term development of the taxi trade. I will be listening very carefully to members' views, together with the Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, before giving a reply. Thank you.
Ms. Eunice Young, President. Taxis are a key mode of transport of Hong Kong. I thank Mr. Chen Kin-po for his motion on resolving the problems of traffic safety and insurance premium increases for taxis. The information shows that we've seen taxi-related accidents starting from 2021. We've seen 8,080 accidents involving taxis. That's more than 23% of all accidents. We have also seen a rising accident rate of taxis that drives up the insurance premiums. This adds to the operating costs of taxis. From the insurance authority, we know that the mean premium has gone up from 28,000 to 45,000. That's more than 26% rise. A third-party insurance, 22,000 to 27,000, a more than 24% increase. We know that insurance premium is one of the key cost components for taxis. The rising premiums add to the burden for taxis. With a drop in income, it's hard to get young drivers to enter the taxi trade. This explains why we see a rapidly aging workforce among cabbies. So the only option is to drive up the fares for taxis. So we have to address the problem at root. This means improving road safety to reduce traffic accidents. So the the government should consult the trade, set up funds so that such that taxi drivers have to pay a certain amount of the excesses. The Transport Department should also work with the relevant stakeholders, work out a solution to reduce accidents that works for the insurance and the drivers. This way we will see lower premiums. We should also bring in outside insurers. That way we can have healthy competition and drive down the premiums. From 2021 to January this year, we had 1,045 cars aged 10 to 19 below more than 20, and they make up 25 and 10% of the total number of taxis. To improve road safety, the government needs to help the trade bring in new energy transport and also provide support facilities, offer financial incentives for owners to phase out the old cars in poor condition, step up the examination of new cars. For cars older than 20 years, there should be more stringent standards in the checkups of these cars. A taxi driver should also get subsidies so that they can install new devices, the alert systems, GPS systems, etc. With the new devices, we can reduce accidents. Cloud-connected dashboard cameras can also provide real-time monitoring. This will also help the insurers delineate the responsibilities, so we will have fewer disputes and fewer insurance fraud cases that will in turn drive down the insurance premiums. We have seen more senior cabbies. We have an aging population that affects the long-term development of many trades. Now, according to a general trade union's report, the average age of cabbies is over 60 years old. Many of them are actually over 70 years old. The TD's figures show we had 295 accidents involving taxis in January. 166 involved cabbies over the age of 60. Now, for older drivers, they may see declining eyesight and slow response, etc., and among other health problems. But then, we should not just write off the contribution of the seniors to our community. We should not negate the contribution of senior cabbies, but we have to make sure they are in a healthy state before they get behind the wheels. So I agree with the amendment. Mr. Chen Kin-po's motion proposes an annual health check. Mr. Frankie Yick's amendment proposes the annual health check to start at the age of 68. Mr. Chen Han-pen proposes a check every 2 years. They all share in common concern for drivers' well-being. So all these amendments along with the motion deserve our support. So I hope the government can provide subsidies, allowances, encourage drivers to install devices to monitor the mental state, physical state. If something's wrong, the system can give off an alert and reduce accidents. I also support Mr. Ben Chan's remark that we should provide more incentives for drivers as so submit. Mr. Ronick Chen. President, the taxi industry goes back more than 100 years in history, and this is one of the main key modes of transport. We have more than 18,000 taxis. Every day they carry more than 1 million passenger trips. So taxi service is a key part of people's daily life. There are taxi-related accidents. For people, insurers, and other motorists, they are concerned. We have more than 60 insurers offering motor insurance, but only a small number of them are willing to offer taxi insurance. 25%, that's the accident rate of taxis. That's 10 times as high as private cars. Insurance payouts are huge. Insurance premiums of taxis have gone up and up. But over the past 16 years, 11 years saw underwriting losses. Target Insurance declined new taxi insurance policies. So the insurance authority had to step in to maintain stability in the market and ensure the interests of those taking out the insurance. Now, the excesses in the insurance premium have gone up over the years, especially for taxis involved in accidents. The premium is $40,000 to $50,000 or even $60,000 to $70,000. The excess has gone up from $20,000 to $50,000. Even for taxis with the safe profile, the premium has gone up from $20,000 to $30,000. That's more than 50%. Last year, the Chief Executive and Council approved the rise in fares for taxis. The taxi trade has proposed another rise. The surging premium is probably one of the reasons behind the rise in fares. Mr. Chen Kin-po proposes phasing out the old taxis and also installing devices to reduce traffic accidents. That way we can address the safety issues and the rising premium. This is a way to stop the further rise in the premium. Now, there are no rules on how long a taxi can keep running on the road, but with older vehicles, it's more likely they get into accidents. That also drives up the premiums. The mainland has a shorter history of hire cars, but many have replaced their fleet. There are also laws in the mainland for small hire cars, passenger vehicles. They have to replace after 8 years, and there are also requirements on the emissions, technical requirements, and there is also a kind of mandatory retirement mechanism for taxis or other hire cars. So we should introduce such a limit. That way we will see fewer traffic accidents. And this will also help curb the rises in premium for taxis. Many places adopt sensors. When a vehicle is moving, the device can keep track of the surrounding environment. It collects data and also it incorporates GPS. And then there you have the data analytics. So it can alert drivers to imminent danger. This also means a more comfortable drive. The European Union has required that for cars hitting the ground, there are fatigue alerts and also automatic speed limits. In the EU regions, the laws have taken effect. So for roads hitting that is on sale after 2024, they need to come with such safety devices. In 28 states of the US, they also have the relevant regulations on the safety devices, or ADAS. We don't have such rules in Hong Kong yet, but look at what other places have done. The government should consider adopting Mr. Chen Kin-po and other members' suggestions, provide financial incentives to install ADAS and have the cloud-connected dash cameras to keep track of drivers' mental state, driving behavior, delineate the responsibilities of accidents, and prevent insurance fraud. That will help improve safety among taxis and also reduce taxi-related accidents. President, I support the motion and also I support Mr. Ben Chen and Mr. Chen Siu-hung's amendment, but I have some reservations about some of Mr. Frankie YICK's amendment. Mr. Duncan Chiu. President, I speak in support of Mr. Chen Kin-po's motion on resolving the problems of traffic safety of an insurance premium increases for taxis. The TD's figure shows that in recent years, every year, more than 4,000 accidents involve taxis. In 2020, due to COVID, the economy came to slow down. There was a drop to 3,800 or so in terms of taxi accidents. But in 2021 and 2022, we had 4,630 and 4,042 taxi-related accidents. In the first quarter this year, we had 1,147 taxi-related accidents. The high number of taxi fares have to do with the high premium. Now, we have long-standing issues with the taxi trade. It usually has to do poor quality of service, overcharging, turning down drivers, detours. We've received complaints. Foreign visitors come here. They don't have cash. In their home countries, they're used to e-payment in their home countries, especially for the point-to-point transport. Unfortunately, for public transport here, we don't have e-payment across the board yet. Many taxis take cash only, and that's not ideal. In the past, I made this point time and again. We're driving the development of fintech, but many taxis do not offer e-payment as an option. So overseas visitors that come here are having a bad experience. They come here and they get the impression that we're backward in terms of technology. Now, we have made great strides in our e-payment security. We have well-developed technology and infrastructure. Cashless payment is a part of a broader trend. After a few years, we had COVID. That sped up the development of e-payment in Hong Kong. The MTR buses, minibuses, they have e-payment options. For some trades, though, they're still stuck in the rut of cash payment. In the May 1st, trams, buses, ferries, we've got complaints about the lack of e-payment options. But then afterwards, ferries, trams have pledged to put in place e-payment systems. So the government needs to come up with a way to get the taxi trade to roll out e-payment across the board. Now, to improve the taxi trade service quality, there was a review about the operation of the trade and the management. There were recommendations on how to improve the trade. One of them was to have a fleet management system early this year, to have new requirements on a range of matters. The Secretary for Transport and Logistics also said that in terms of the fleet management, the government would consider requiring e-payment options for passengers. But in the first half of this year, which is now behind us, the fleet management system was supposed to come out early this year, but it's nowhere to be seen. What happened? When can we see that? Under the new system, will all taxis, old and new, be required to offer e-payment? For our current taxi fleet, will the systems be in place progressively or in one go? Do we have a timetable? I look forward to a response. If there's no requirement to offer e-payment across the board and simply restrict that to the new taxis, so the taxis just getting their licenses, then my concern is we will see very slow progress in the rollout of e-payment, and that will keep hurting our image as a tech hub. I hope the government can show resolve, take decisive action, provide greater incentives for the taxi trade. That way, we will see e-payment used across the board in public transport. President, the motion and the amendments contain ideas about making use of INT. I support all of them. Greater use of technology such as cloud-connected dashboard cameras, e-payment options. Once we have everything in place, then we can keep back at the track of the trip, so there will be fewer detours, that will improve the image of the taxis, and there will be less congestion. And then we will also see a possible drop in premium for taxis due to the greater use of technology. That will also help attract more young people to enter the taxi trade and bring a new atmosphere to the taxi trade. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Pudong. Thank you, Mr. President. I need to declare, first of all, that the insurance company that I work for also underwrites taxi insurance. Now, taxi driving safety is an issue close to the heart of members. I thank Mr. Chan Kin-por for moving this motion so that I can share my views on this subject. Whenever we hear about increased taxi fares, we hear about the reasons such as increase in operating costs and taxi insurance premiums. I need to explain why we need to raise the premiums. In the past 5 years, the underwriting losses of insurers amounted to $270 million, and two specialized insurers such as Singfei and also Target Insurance folded one after another. And these taxi insurance policies were transferred to other insurers. As a result, the taxi premiums increased. In 2022, however, despite the increase in premium, those insurers specializing in taxi insurance premiums still suffered the loss up to $58 million. That is why, despite having many major insurers in Hong Kong, only a few of them are willing to provide underwriting and insurance coverage for taxis. Now, accident rate is a major factor in assessing taxi premiums. Taxi accidents accounting for 20% of all traffic accidents, 10 times that of private cars. That is why I support Mr. Chan Kin-por's motion. Risk management strategies should be put in place so as to reduce insurance premiums or insurance excesses. In the long term, this can incentivize more insurers to provide insurance coverage for taxis. I also agree that the physical fitness certification age threshold should be lowered to 65. At this moment, over half of the taxi drivers registered are over the age of 60. And the age group of 60 to 69 is the group with the largest number of traffic accidents. I think that there is a need to change the examination requirements. The interval should be changed from 3 years to 1 year. In one instance, a taxi driver had 3 traffic accidents in a single day. So standards should be drawn up. We should improve the medical examination system and improve the criteria, such as the test for the driver's response level. As one ages, they tend to react more slowly, and this will impact on accidents. We should also encourage the installation of cloud-connected dash cameras. This should be made a compulsory requirement. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for all drivers to be installed with the technology. This is, after all, a safeguard for drivers and also to help us differentiate responsibilities if accidents happen. A centralized database should be set up. We should keep track of the record of drivers, their details, and the accidents so that insurers can make use of the database to identify those with poor track record. This can help insurers conduct premium risk assessments in a better way and adjust the taxi premiums. I'm sure that the taxi insurance trade will be happy to discuss the details with the government. The taxi trade has the problem of aging drivers, and it also faces competition from other public transport operators. We should make a joint effort to salvage confidence of passengers in taxis so that if we upgrade the image of the trade, we can attract new blood. We should tackle the problem at source by enhancing the safety of taxis. We should encourage drivers, owners, or fleet companies to make better use of technology. We should also enhance the awareness of safety awareness of drivers and make sure that they look after their health, and these are ways to ensure safety. And by doing so, we can also help reduce the operating costs of taxi insurance trade and ensure the long-term development of the taxi trade. I support Mr. Chan Kin-por's original motion and Mr. Ben Chan's amendment. Ms. Doreen Kong. Taxi is supposed to be an indicator of Hong Kong being a successful metropolis around the world, but there are so many problems. In relation to this trade, I support Mr. Chan Kin-por's motion. I'd like to take this opportunity to look into a deep-seated problem in relation to insurance premium. According to statistics, taxis accounted for 7.2% of all public transport in Hong Kong. It's the 4th place in terms of our public transport system. However, the number of complaints have been on the rise. In 2016, the government discussed a pilot scheme on the quality taxi service with a view to improving the service quality of taxis. It was a very controversial scheme. To this day, we still have this long-standing problem. I'd like to take this opportunity to look deeper into this issue. About the controversies, there are 2 points. First, taxi fleet companies representing the trade objected to the government's proposed scheme because this would affect the pricing of their taxi licenses. This reflects the situation of companies dominating the market. Because of the high prices, taxi drivers could only rent taxis and do their business for the day on a daily basis. At the end of the day, despite the fare increases, drivers do not get a share of the profit. Despite all the hard work, drivers are the foot soldiers of the trade. They are oppressed by the taxi fleet companies. The second bone of contention is this. According to the government, if fares are higher, supposedly better services should be provided. Why is it that we cannot provide the service of quality with affordable pricing? Be it the quality taxi service scheme that doesn't directly address the problem, or the online hailing service Uber, the prevalence shows that the government is not facing the issue squarely. Take Uber as an example. Why is it that the patronage continues to go up despite the government's not officially recognizing the legitimacy of the business? These are the two controversies that cause the taxi trade to deteriorate, and they're in dire straits. The government should first provide support for the taxi trade in order for the trade to provide quality service. This is how we build a good circle. In other words, the government should tackle the problems at source. The government should safeguard the rights of drivers and address the excessive pricing of taxi licenses. The government should also make sure that medical checkups are done on a regular basis, not to mention public education and publicity. The government should face the issue squarely and deal with the online hailing service. The government should address the gray areas and should not shun enforcement actions. Uber acquired another hailing service company in 2021. The government should think from the perspective of developing Hong Kong into a smart city so as to address the issue of market dominance by taxi fleet operators. Now, on the face of it, surging taxi insurance premiums seem to be the major factor in rising operating costs. But at the end of the day, we have a chain of oppression, starting with the taxi fleet operators down to taxi drivers and customers. The government should not shun this conflict. The government should not allow this confrontation between the taxi trade and the online hailing service to continue. Instead, the government should help facilitate the development of a smart city and smart transport so that with a fresh mindset, the government tackles the issue at hand. That means we should give an overhaul and enhance the quality of the taxi trade. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, Mr. President. The patronage of taxis has been on a decline in recent years. There have been many complaints about the poor service quality, refusal to hire, refuse to cross the harbor, overcharging of fares, not to mention fare hikes deterring passengers from taking taxis altogether. There are altogether 18,000 taxi licenses in Hong Kong. 60% of these licenses are held by individuals. The rest is held by fleet operators. In terms of management, there are many difficulties. In 2017, when the government conducted a study on public transport, the number of the taxi licenses, in terms of the taxi licenses issued, they run on a permanent basis. The government cannot impose additional conditions on these licenses. Some taxi fleets are not maintained properly, affecting the service quality and, in the end of the day, users' experience. In order to help salvage quality of the taxi services, we need to tackle the problem at source. Last year, the government put forward a proposal that is a consultation document on revamping the personalized point-to-point transport service. Now, I think that a mechanism should be introduced. For example, in the future, the taxi licenses should come with a validity period, and for taxi fleet management, a regime should be set up to make sure that the fleet is managed in a systematic manner, as well as the driver, so as to ensure the driver's performance standards. E-payments should be made a more popular or should be adopted more extensively. We should also perhaps allow the first-class taxi service to be provided for for those with better means. An oral question was put by Mr. Chan Kin-po not long ago, and according to the government, a number of measures were introduced, such as a point deduction system and a two-tier penalty system for taxi drivers. I think we need to increase deterrence so as to enhance the driver's safety awareness and service quality. I hope the government can iron out details as quickly as possible to improve the management of taxi fleets. In September 2022, according to government data, 55% of drivers were aged 60 or above, and 1,444 drivers in Hong Kong were aged over 80. 1,072 of drivers above the age of 65 had accidents. That's 3 times the number, that is 370 involved in accidents back in 2013. The government should tackle this issue properly. That means, for example, the government should be the gatekeeper in terms of the age threshold from taxi drivers. For example, the maximum daily working hours and maximum number of working days in a month should be laid down for aged taxi drivers to help prevent fatigue. For those who are no longer fit to drive a taxi, we should help these retired drivers either retire or switch to another field. Retraining courses can be provided to help them. Professional drivers who surrender their licenses can also be provided with consumption vouchers or coupons so as to tide them over. Meanwhile, we can also ensure that minimal risk will be caused to road users, pedestrians, and other motorists. I hope the Transport Department will tackle these issues surrounding the taxi trade. The government should show resolve in tackling these problems so that there is hope for prospective operators and salvage public confidence. I so submit I support the original motion and all the amendments.
主席，本港近年
Reverend Peter Douglas Kuhn, President, in recent years we have quite a number of accidents involving aged taxi accidents. There was one elderly taxi driver who lost control of his taxi in North Point. So that a lot of media abstraction has been created, and the focus has been on the age of the driver. According to the Transport Department, we have about 1,700 taxi driver who is over the age of 80, but we have lost sight of the cause of the accident, which might have to do with the age of the taxi. We have 20% of taxis in Hong Kong which are 5-seaters, which are old taxis. They are still running on the road. Soon the government will be more resolute in mandating the replacement of such old taxis. And the taxi examination criteria should be tightened. Of course, age doesn't mean the poor health. It doesn't follow that an old driver would necessarily be a dangerous driver, but of course our response time and agility is affected by our age. And when there's an accident, the accident would be more serious if the driver is aged. And Hong Kong is a densely populated city, and if we are not really vigilant enough, very easily we would have accidents. So the government should have regard to the aging profile of taxi drivers, and also pay attention to the question of mechanical failure of old taxis. PLB is also facing the same problem of an aging fleet, but the government has not conducted any study into this, let alone proposing any solutions or replacement program. We have been asking for the introduction of e-taxis, but nothing much has been done. We've just introduced 5 e-taxis recently. How can we compete on this ground with our neighbors? There are recent proposals that for drivers of commercial vehicles, when they renew their driving license, the age of mandatory health examination is 65, and there should be an examination once a year. I hope more can be done to make improvements. I propose that we should make it clear the criteria for passing the health medical examination. Because at present, it only takes a registered medical practitioner to issue a health certificate. So if we have criteria, we can avoid people circumventing the system. I hope the Transport Department can come up with a centralized medical examination center or designated doctors, just like what we do with when we replace our smart ID. And also, we should have people that designated as medical examiners so as to avoid the associated risk of poor medical examination. Many taxis have been equipped with safety devices or alarms to prevent accidents. I hope more can be done. So I submit. Mr. Lee Chan-keung, taxi premium has risen by 3 times in recent 10 years. So the taxi trade has found the environment very tough. Unlike private cars, taxi premium is paid by taxi owners, and therefore many taxi drivers are taking advantage of the traffic accident victim assistance scheme. Many taxi drivers, when they encounter an accident, would ask the hospital to issue a medical certificate, even though they are not seriously injured, so that they can get assistance from the traffic accident assistance scheme. And also, they would try to get bigger claims by involving unscrupulous legal practitioners. And also, they would keep all the receipts and expenses claims for 3 years and submit them at the last minute, so that the insurance companies are suffering greater and greater losses. So they have to increase the premium and the excess amount to keep them afloat. We have also got unlicensed passenger service offered by private vehicles. And also taxi fares are not getting the hikes in accordance with the composite CPI. On top, other costs such as fuel costs are rising all the time. As a result, taxi drivers are receiving lower and lower pay. If we compare with other trades, self-employed taxi drivers are earning 30% less than their counterparts in other public transport or providers. So young people do not want to become taxi drivers. The average age of taxi drivers is now over 60. The Liberal Party suggests that we should come up with a roadmap to resolve this long-standing problem. Otherwise, the future for the taxi trade is really bleak. First, there should be a bigger fleet. There should be better management of the taxi fleet and drivers. There should be more incentive and benefits for young people to join the taxi trade. There should be a data bank on accidents and claims, so that taxi owners can check the past records of claims by taxi drivers, so that the taxi fleet companies and taxi owners can decide whether they should allow these unscrupulous taxi drivers to hire their taxis. This will reduce the number of accidents and claims. The government should also have short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures. First, the government should combat the unlicensed so-called 白牌 vehicles. Second, we should lower the entry threshold for taxi driving license examination. We should provide incentive for new entrants, and there should be a interdepartmental working group on setting up a database on accidents and claims. And all taxis should be equipped with cameras and recorders. The Transport Department should expedite the processing of fare increase applications so as to make them more competitive. And also, taxi owners should be allowed to purchase taxi driver with a capacity of 6 passengers. We should also do more to attract new young people to join the trade. And we should encourage insurance companies to offer incentive premium for taxis equipped with the relevant device and safety technology. And we should also combat people who are guilty of champerty and abusing the traffic accident victim assistance scheme. And also, we should allow taxi drivers to take out insurance covers direct. President, I think the taxi drivers should be more determined in reforming the trade, and so that the taxi drivers' service attitude can be appreciated by the public. So I submit. Mr. Martin Liu, I thank Mr. Chen Kin-po for moving this motion. In recent years, there are more and more taxi involved in accidents. It's the second biggest source of accidents. It's 4,000 a year, and many taxi drivers have made false claims based on injuries they have not suffered. And many insurance companies have withdrawn from the taxi insurance market because of losses. It is due to the lack of traffic safety of taxis. There are 2,575 taxis. 501 are related to attitude of taxi drivers, the second major factor. As for bogus insurance claims, we should ask the law enforcement agencies to crack down on such behavior. To enhance safety, we should make the best use of technology. Under the Smart Transport Fund, we have subsidized many IT companies. They should be able to help us to come up with equipment and device to monitor the taxi drivers' behavior and alertness so that we can reduce accidents. The government should also embark on new studies on the introduction of such safety devices and encourage the taxi trade to adopt them. And our insurance companies should make reference from foreign practice of installing the safety device on board a taxi so that they can collect very accurate and focus the information on the driver, and also the driving behavior of non-performing drivers can be rectified. Of course, we need to address the problem of taxi drivers who are very old. The average is 59, and from March for this year, we have many accidents, 7 involving taxi drivers who are over 70 years old. I believe it's a reasonable move to lower the age limit for medical examination from 70 to 65. Mr. Frankie YICK proposes that the age should be adjusted to 68. I understand his intention is to cater for the interests of the trade, but 68 is not very much different from 70. And if we ask drivers to be tested very thoroughly, then we may not need to have this examination once a year. But it seems that at present, the examination usually takes the form of just visual inspection. President, management is instrumental to enhancing the performance. We should allow the drivers to form a fleet among themselves to apply for taxi license. So I believe this would enhance taxi safety. I hope the government can come up with a plan very soon. If taxi drivers have better driving behavior and then coupled with better management, we can reduce accidents. And at that point, the problem with high insurance premium can be addressed. With this remark, I support Mr. Chan Kin-por's original motion and the amendment moved by Mr. Chen Siu-hung and Mr. Chen Han-ben.
Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I speak in support of Mr. Chan Kin-por's original motion. In Hong Kong, we have seen a spate of accidents involving senior cabbies. The community is very concerned. According to the TD stats from 2021 to January this year, every month we had roughly 300 traffic accidents involving taxis. Every day, we have 10 such accidents. Around half of them involve cabbies over the age of 60. Government figures show that compared to other kinds of public transport, taxis see the most number of accidents. That's 60% of all public transport accidents. More taxi-related accidents, that's safety risk for passengers. There's also risk for other motorists. Lives are put at risk. Other vehicles are at risk, and this in turn affects our city's development. More taxi-related accidents, and now we see higher insurance premium from 2016 to 2022. Insurance premium for taxis has seen a drop in the profits of the underwriting. In terms of the composite taxi insurance and third-party insurance, we've seen losses of over $1 million. The only way out for insurance is to raise the premium from 2019 to 2022. The overall insurance premium has gone up. For third-party insurance, the premium has also gone up. That also leads to rising operating costs for taxis. So the taxi trade has to ask for higher fares. That's a vicious cycle because ultimately passengers bear the rising costs. So there's a need to review why the accidents happen. I propose a full range of measures. First, better safety awareness for cabbies. So we need to strengthen health checks. For senior cabbies, we need more stringent health checks and also better monitoring. We need to make sure the taxi drivers are fit for driving For those who breach rules, we need penalties. We need to assess the cabbies before allowing them to get behind the wheel. I agree with the motion that we should lower the age threshold of health checks from 70 to 65 years old, and we need annual health checks. Mr. Frankie YICK and Mr. Ben Chan's amendments are worth considering in part. This includes the rating system for cabbies' performance and also better publicity and education about health for taxi cabbies, and also a better system to examine the taxis to make sure the cars are safe, and we should also encourage owners to phase out old taxis in poor conditions. We need to adopt more stringent standards. Third, we need to promote a smart transport system, systems to monitor the cars, lane keeping alerts. This will ensure greater safety. We also need to bring in advanced driver assistance systems. For example, devices that can keep track of how the driver is doing, get the trade to get involved in these smart systems. There's a pressing need to address the taxi-related accidents. I support the motion. I so submit. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Chen Kin-po, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, Madam Deputy. First, I thank Mr. Frankie YICK, Mr. Chen Siu-hung, and Mr. Ben Chen for their amendments. Their amendments have enriched my original motion. Mr. Frankie YICK proposes a penalty and incentive system for measures taken by cabbies who have a good track record. I agree. I'm trying to make that happen too. I believe insurers will be happy to explore this option. Mr. YICK also proposes better publicity about health education for cabbies. I also agree. But then Mr. YICK proposes 68 years old as a threshold for annual health checks. I respect that view, but if the drivers pass the check when they go for a health check, that's good. If they are subject to health checks at an older age, that actually does little to make a difference. Mr. Ben Chen also proposes something about the health checks. He proposes a health check every 2 years. So he agrees with moving the threshold to 65 years old. I think that's worth exploring. So I support Mr. Ben Chen's amendment, whereas Mr. YICK's proposal is simply kicking the can down the road. Now, Mr. Chen Siu-hung's amendment has to do with e-taxis. That's also in line with my original motion. I support them. Mr. Chen Siu-hung also proposes ways to improve taxi service. I support it as well. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Under Secretary for Financial Services and Treasury. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. Chen Kin-po for moving this motion and all the 14 members who have spoken on the motion. I thank them for their observations and comments. I'll now respond to their comments in relation to insurance. Taxi insurance, like other vehicle insurance business, is carried out by insurance company based on commercial principles in offering coverage and assessing premium levels. The main factors to be considered are accident rate, seriousness of accidents, and past claim records. The premium will be set to reflect the risk at present faced by the taxi trade. In recent years, taxi have been evolving in more taxis, and the taxi accident rate has been on the rise, and the business environment for taxi insurance business is poor. So inevitably, taxi premium has been on the rise. According to the Insurance Authority, in the past 18 years, that is from 2005 to 2022, for 12 years, the insurance sector suffered losses in totaling 344 million Hong Kong dollars. This means that there's a mismatch of premium and taxi accident rates risk. In the long term, this is not sustainable. The government is concerned about the difficulties faced by the taxi trade in taking out insurance coverage. In the last term, there was a joint subcommittee with the to look into the insurance problem faced by the transport sector. We conducted in-depth discussion. We believe that to respond to the problem of taxi insurance premium, we must look at the source of the problem and enhance safety. We should encourage taxi drivers and taxi-free companies to employ the drivers with good records, and also to adopt the technology such as a collision warning or keep-in-lane warning system so as to reduce risks and claims. And if we have a proper differentiation of risk by taxi owners and taxi-free companies, then taxi insurance companies can accurately assess the risk involved and the premium to be charged. On the question of the suggestions made by the subcommittees to improve management and taxi drivers' safety, the FSTB and the TLB, together with Transport Department Insurance Authority, have been liaising with the taxi and the insurance sectors closely. We know that insurance companies which have taken risk differentiation measures so that the premium can better reflect the risk faced by the taxi in question, such as the offering of named drivers, premium assessment system, and also if for taxi drivers who can offer a taxi offense record, they would get a discount in premium. And if they can offer a video recording copy of the incident when they make claims, they would be able to get a reduction in the excess they paid. In encouraging the adoption of technology to enhance safety, we support the installation on dashboard cameras and also the provision of video recording of accidents and the installation of anti-collision or keep-in-lane warning system to monitor the driver's behavior. We also promote the adoption of risk differentiation measures by insurance companies so as to reduce taxi accidents and as a result, lower the premium. Apart from the Smart Transport Fund offered by the Transport Department, we know that there are other insurance companies who have been offering more collaboration with the taxi trade. I want to thank Mr. Chen Kim-po and Mr. Frankie YICK for meeting with my bureau, the TLB and the Insurance Authority, and to look at ways and means to the promotion of greater adoption of risk differentiation measures so as to address the problem of high insurance premium of taxi insurance business. We'll continue to maintain liaison with the relevant stakeholders and offer timely assistance. In a moment, the Transport and Logistics Bureau would offering an in-depth response to all the suggestions on how we can enhance taxi safety and the development of taxi trade. We monitor the taxi insurance market and together with the government departments, the stakeholders, the insurance sector and the taxi trade, we will maintain close liaison and adopt sustainable development measures to reduce the burden of the trade.
Secretary for Transport and Logistics. Madam Deputy, I thank 14 members who have spoken to express their views and suggestions. The Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury already responded to issues relating to taxi insurance. I will now give a consolidated response to the motion, amendments, and members' comments on taxi operation and services. On encouraging taxi owners to replace their old taxis with electric taxis, the government has been promoting new energy transport. The Hong Kong Roadmap on Popularization of Electric Vehicles in 2021 maps out the strategies and measures for the transport sector to gradually adopt electric commercial vehicles. In the Policy Address 2022, the government has laid down the target of commissioning 3,000 electric taxis before the end of 2027. To encourage more taxi owners to switch to electric taxis, the government has put forward in this year's budget the dedicated 100% loan guarantee scheme for battery electric taxis to incentivize owners to replace their conventional taxis with electric ones. We earlier secured approval from the Finance Committee, and we are now discussing the details with the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation Insurance Limited. The loan scheme is expected to be launched in the middle of this year. Apart from the above loan scheme, the government has been actively taking forward various initiatives to promote the wider adoption of electric taxis. For example, subsidies are provided under the new Energy Transport Fund for the taxi trade to test run the new generation of electric taxis, encourage suppliers to introduce electric taxi models suitable for Hong Kong, expand the quick charging network for e-taxis, and promoting training on electric vehicle technologies and maintenance. We are aware that to promote the wider adoption of electric taxis, it is essential that we enhance the supporting facilities. The government is identifying suitable locations across the territory to install chargers exclusively for taxis. They include taxi stands, government premises, sites on short-term tenancies. The government is also actively preparing for the quick charging network for the trial and operation of electric taxis, and we will explore using existing commercial quick chargers to support e-taxis and encourage business operators to expand the public network of quick chargers. A new electric taxi charging pilot project under the new Energy Transport Fund supports the taxi trade in trying out the mode of charging most suited to their operation. In the medium to long term, the government is actively preparing for the gradual transformation of some petrol stations into quick charging stations for different commercial vehicles, including electric taxis. On vehicle examination, commercial vehicles in Hong Kong, including taxis, are subject to annual examination to ensure their roadworthiness. If a taxi fails the vehicle examination, a vehicle examination report and repair order stating all defects found in the examination will be issued by the center. After repair, the taxi will be subject to re-examination to make sure that it meets all the necessary requirements for passing the exam and license renewal. The Transport Department will continue to stringently enforce the vehicle examination mechanism to ensure road safety. On the physical fitness of drivers, physical conditions of drivers are of vital importance to himself and ensuring the safety of other road users. The government has all along been very concerned, and we are very aware of the diverse views from the sector and legislators on the age threshold, frequency of examination, etc. As reported to the panel on transport in May this year, the government has put forward a number of recommendations having considered the consultant's exploration and analysis, requirements and practices in other jurisdictions, local research and data, and discussions with the expert panel. These include adopting a more stringent age threshold for commercial vehicle drivers, including taxi drivers, lowering the age threshold for submitting physical fitness certification from the age of 70 or above to the age of 65 or above, and changing the validity period of a full driving license from 1 year or 3 years to just 1 year. The government will consult the transport sector and the relevant stakeholders in the second half of this year so as to iron out details as quickly as possible. Some members have suggested that subsidies should be provided for taxi drivers to do checkups. The government understands that this issue is dear to the heart of commercial vehicle drivers, and some drivers wish the government could provide medical examination subsidies after tightening the requirements. Once the relevant medical guidelines have been drawn up with clearer information on fee levels and the views of the sector and other stakeholders have been sought, the government will consider the feasibility of subsidizing the driver's medical examination. As this involves recurrent expenditure, we need to be very careful in considering the proposal to ensure the proper use of public money and prevent abuse. Mr. Frankie YICK's amendment urges the government to enhance publicity of health education and improve drivers' management of their own health conditions. The government attaches importance to driving safety and the health of taxi drivers. We disseminate the relevant messages through publicity and education. For example, the Transport Department organizes the Safe Driving and Health campaign for commercial vehicle drivers, including taxi drivers, seminars on health and safe driving for taxi drivers, publishes and distributes the taxi correspondence. In September 2019, the Transport Department formulated a set of working hours guidelines for taxi drivers. The government will continue to disseminate health messages to motorists, including taxi drivers, through various channels to remind them to pay attention to their own health. In terms of applying technology to improve driving safety, the government has rolled out a $1 billion smart transport fund. Funding support is provided to local organizations and enterprises for conducting research and application of vehicle-related innovation technology. To date, the fund has approved 3 projects relating to taxi driving safety with an aim to improving driving safety and driving habits of drivers. These projects include a trial of the driving safety monitoring systems on taxis to monitor the condition and behavior of drivers and send out alerts when necessary. The department will closely monitor the trial results of the projects, and subject to effectiveness, the department will encourage more taxis to install the systems. Apart from the trial projects under the Smart Traffic Fund, we understand that the taxi trade has been participating in testing different anti-collision warning devices, lane-keeping warning devices, and devices that could monitor the driver's condition and driving behavior. The Transport Department will continue to communicate closely with the taxi trade for identifying suitable safety devices and the latest technology so as to facilitate the processing of applications. In recent years, the Transport Department has approved applications of installing driver assistance systems or ADAS, including taxis. For example, some taxi models are equipped with the forward collision mitigation system, lane departure warning system, and the EPB, electronic parking brakes. Apart from innovation and technology, the government has all along been encouraging the trade to enhance safety through different measures, such as the installation of dashboard cameras and hiring drivers with good track record. We believe the above measures can help lower the taxi drivers' own management risk and reduce the chance of traffic accidents, which can help drive taxi premiums. As we understand from insurers, if the insured can provide a copy of the video recording of the incident when submitting a claim, the amount of excess can be deducted. This will help encourage the trade to install cloud-connected dashboard cameras. Members have given various views on improving the operating environment, enhancing service quality, and attracting new blood to the trade. The government has introduced a number of measures in collaboration with the Committee on Taxi Service Quality, such as online training courses for in-service drivers, such as taxi service commendation scheme, so as to recognize the quality services provided by taxi drivers as well as the management team. We also encourage drivers to install different e-payment systems to enhance service quality. The government earlier reviewed the operation and management of the taxi trade and put forward a series of measures to enhance personalized point-to-point transport service to promote the long-term development of the trade. These measures include the introduction of a taxi fleet management regime, increasing the seating capacity to 6 passengers, increasing the penalty for certain taxi-related offenses, as well as raising the penalty for using vehicle for illegal carriage or of passengers for hire or reward. In April last year, we consulted the panel on transport of the Legislative Council on the above measures. Members in general backed these proposals. We are of the view that the proposed taxi fleet management regime could help encourage the trade to adopt professional fleet management, which is conducive to better maintenance and management, as well as more effective management of drivers. The regime could also help encourage the trade to adopt technology to enhance safety. For example, we will require taxi fleet operators to install safety devices in the taxis, such as GPS dashboard cameras, to enhance driving safety and help determine liabilities in the event of accidents. The operator must also manage drivers properly by issuing guidelines on driving and rest hours to avoid fatigue. We will also require the operators to provide and install different e-payment systems to give taxi passengers more options. The taxi fleet management regime will help the trade with effective management of the performance and quality of taxi drivers. We propose that fleet operators must provide pre-service training to fleet drivers so as to sharpen their customer service skills. The operators should also monitor the service performance of drivers. For example, an online channel must be provided for handling inquiries and complaints, and for the passengers to rate the performance of taxi drivers. An incentive and penalty system should be put in place to commend excellent fleet drivers while issuing reminders and metering out suitable punishments for poor performing drivers. We believe the proposed regime will help enhance the safety and service quality of taxis and raise the overall profile of the trade in order to attract new blood. We're making preparations for the taxi fleet management regime and other proposals. The relevant legislative amendments will be tabled into the Council in a timely manner. In terms of tackling the issue of champerty, maintenance and champerty are common law offences, subject to a financial penalty and maximum imprisonment of up to 7 years. For the persons of liability, the individual should seek legal advice or seek help from the Hong Kong Law Society, the Legal Aid Department, the Labour Department, Social Welfare Department, etc. The government will take a rigorous approach in tackling illegal acts of maintenance and champerty. There will also be publicity and education to raise the public's awareness. On insurance frauds, the government takes a multi-pronged approach. There is a special group set up to tap into the latest trend. In-depth analysis will be conducted on the modus operandi. The government will also join hands with stakeholders such as Hong Kong Federation of Insurers and the Insurance Authority so as to strengthen the gathering of intelligence so that intelligence-led enforcement actions can be taken. The government will continue to liaise with the stakeholders, the taxi trade, taxi insurance trade, and other stakeholders so as to take a joint approach in rolling out measures to promote the long-term development of the trade.
I now call upon Mr. Frankie YICK to move an amendment. Mr. Frankie YICK. Madam Deputy, I move my amendment. I now propose a question to you that Mr. Frankie YICK's amendment be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those who returned by functional constituencies and geographical constituencies. I declare the amendment negatived. Mr. Chen Siu-hung, you may move your amendment. Madam Deputy, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Chen Siu-hung's amendment be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those returned by functional constituencies and geographical constituencies. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Chen Kin-po, you still have 2 minutes and 14 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Mr. Chen Kin-po. Madam Deputy, shouldn't we let Mr. Ben Chen speak as well? Shouldn't we vote on his amendment? Okay, all good. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Again, I thank members for their comments. They have offered great insights. I hope the government can listen to them and consider them. I propose this motion not just to address a problem plaguing the taxi trade and insurance. I'm also trying to fix a social issue. So I urge members to support my motion. Thank you. I now put the question to you that Mr. Chen Kin-po's motion as amended by Mr. Chen Siu-hung be passed. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those returned by functional constituencies and geographical constituencies. I declare the motion as amended passed. The meeting is adjourned. We will resume on Wednesday, 11 a.m. on July 5th.